So you have a long career in different companies of different sizes, but now you spend your time helping companies understand what their values should be, but more importantly, how to embed them so that they're part of the fabric of the company and they actually have some value. Let's start at the beginning. Why do values even matter? Why should we bother going through this exercise?
I'm going to start with a stat. And I think this really helps define why values are important. But 71% of employees consider their organizational values as a key factor in their job satisfaction. That's taken from Infuse Solutions just last year. Now, that's a huge number of people who think that values are important. And the best way that I like to explain it is that values are a compass, or they're your team's compass. And without them, you don't really have a culture. You probably have a bit more of chaos. So this means that you don't define what matters, but your culture will still form. It will probably be by default, but it won't be by design. So everybody will do things based on their own beliefs and their own assumptions, which then leads to a lack of predictability and consistency. So ultimately, our values become a filter for all of our choices, and they guide us in how we do things, particularly when nobody's looking.
Got it. So on the one hand, having them in place is a powerful thing because people, I guess, believe them and live them, and therefore they enjoy it, and therefore they stay. But equally, if the values are not very strong or not very good or just absent, presumably people would leave as well. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I mean, how many times have we seen values up on a wall as one word and we have no idea really what they mean? We know that more and more people want to stay in jobs because they feel much more satisfied. They feel like they're in a culture that thrives, that allows them to be their best selves. And values are such an intrinsical part of that. If we don't have good values in place and not just up on our walls to tell us how to do our everyday behaviors, then we don't really know how we're going to get there. And what I mean by there is every company has a purpose, right? Every organization or hopefully individual has a mission or a purpose. We all hopefully have a vision, which is where we want to get to, and our North Star in, let's say, 5 years, but the values are how we're going to get there. And without them, we don't know how we're going to get to our North Star.
Understood. And I was going to say much the same thing. I've worked in companies where values have been very clear, very easy to understand, make complete sense, and you can see them in action. But a lot of places, you go to the kitchen to make a cup of coffee, you walk past the fridge, and there's a poster on the fridge with some values and long descriptions that no one ever reads, and they don't remember them, and therefore they're pointless.
I've even seen them in the bathrooms. I've seen I've seen those posters up at the toilet doors. So some companies are really, I would say committed to making sure that you see them everywhere. But what does that mean? I mean, I can definitely think of a time in a company where one of the values was optimistic. Great.
Mm.
You want me to be more optimistic? How am I going to be more optimistic? We tend to start or have these one word nouns that we can probably, as you say, it sticks in our head, but we don't know what to do with that. And without the action piece of the value, we don't know how we're meant to do things differently. And it becomes a statement, not really an action plan,
Yeah.
or there's no accountability that comes with that one word, right? So
Yeah.
they'll get introduced as these 4 or 5 amazing words, and then they get forgotten and there's no follow up.
Yeah. And what's the opposite of that? So, um, if if we spend some time and we get our values right and we think they're good and we put them in place, how will I know how, as a leader in a company or even as a frontline employee, how will I know if those values are true and good, but also being acted on and properly part of the fabric rather than just an exercise that we went through and we've done that, tick the box. So how will I know if they're working?
You'll see it. You'll see it, you'll hear it, you'll feel it, you'll be able to measure it. Let's say one of our values is curiosity, or we define it as ask question or something around asking questions, or ask questions with the intention to learn, however we want to define that. That is a bit long, let's maybe not use that. But um
Yeah.
we we will we will see it in action. So we will see our employees take a moment, probably pause and start to be more curious. They might use it in their language directly and say, are we being more curious? Or they might say, shall we ask another question or get to the why before we conclude this? Maybe not in those perfect words that I've just articulated, but we'll start to feel it all around us.
And who are the values for? Because naturally, you're going to have a team of people, maybe the leaders of a company, who will define what the values are. And then you want to embed them into the fabric of the company so that the employees live them. But to a degree, they also go outside the company so that customers and investors and just people who are looking at your company can see what they are. So should you put them on your website and say, these are our values? Or is it enough that they're embedded and the company reflects them and people understand what they are?
We should definitely put them on on our website. They should be externally facing as much as they are internally facing. In fact, one of the exercises I like to do with people is, what does this mean for us internally and what does it mean for us externally? So it's really important that we live our values and we genuinely live our values internally, but also externally, because the more that we externally show our values or we live them, they act as a magnet. And this is what adds to our employer value proposition, or our EVP, which is what makes us unique and different as an employer. And there's actually an amazing stat that says that 61% of employees would leave their current job for a company with a better culture, a number that's higher than those who would leave for a 10% salary bump.
Oh, wow. So it's
Yeah.
very impactful. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that when I've been talking to companies about a job, for example, I'm aware that I am being interviewed on the company values. And also when I've done a lot of interviewing, a lot of our interviewing is around the values. Does this person reflect the values of our company?
Absolutely, because, and as I said earlier, values help us make decisions. And one of those decisions is hiring people. So actually, we can ask questions in that interview process once we know what our company values are, to show, does this person demonstrate one of our core values? And that might really help us determine whether that person is going to fit into our culture.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk a lot about knowledge and skill and behavior. Knowledge and skill I can grow, but your behavior you sort of bring and it's got to match. And if it doesn't match, you're probably not going to succeed.